All right, guys. So today I'm going to talk to you about making Đeladija, everybody's favorite Christmas food, right? So we're going to make it with some ham hocks. These are pretty big ham hocks, actually. These get cut into three pieces typically. Some pork tongue, which is probably the best part of the Đeladija, and some pork trotters, which happens to be my least favorite part of Đeladija. And next time I make it, I'm not going to include any trotters. I think I also threw in some pigtail in this one, which again I'm not going to add because then you get all these bones in there that you got to pick out, and it's kind of a pain in the butt. Absolutely, the ham hocks are the way to go, and the pork tongue. But most importantly, and I think where a lot of people fail when they make Đeladija, is you got to really make a broth, a soup, right? So you're going to use some celery, some carrots, some parsley, some parsnips, onions. Absolutely need the onions. Tarragon, which is a little bit different, and some bay leaves. At the end, you're going to throw in some red pepper flake, garlic, lots of salt, and my secret ingredient, a bottle of wine. So basically, this is all going to boil for 3 to 4 hours until the meat is pretty much falling off the bone and all the collagen is been rendered. So first things first, I take all the meat and I put it into a large stock pot and I get the water boiling. In the meantime, I'm cutting up all the vegetables and getting them ready to make that tasty broth. Parsley, carrots, onions, celery, all chopped coarsely. At this point, we are not adding any garlic. Garlic will come in right at the end once everything has been cooked, and I will add it at the last minute. So now we go back to the meat, and it's been boiled off, and you can see all that nasty scum on top. Take all that meat out, wash it off, and then separate it into your stock pots, and you're gonna cook it with the vegetables to make that delicious broth, which is what actually is going to give the flavor to the jelly, right? So the meat provides the collagen, all the joints, all the bones, and the vegetables and the herbs are really what give it all the flavor. So we're going to start boiling it all together. At this point, you can see very low simmer. You don't want this boiling hard because then what'll happen is your jelly is going to be very cloudy, and so you got to do it on a low simmer. So now we're about 3.5 hours into it. You can see the broth has been cooked, and it's cooked down pretty good. At this point, you can see the oil. I'll call it oil, but really what it is just some rendered fat. Then we're going to strain it, and we want to separate the broth from the meat and the vegetables and then start picking through the meat. When I separate it, I keep cooking the broth just to make it a little bit denser. So here we are, we're going through, we're picking the bones out. And like I said, we added some pigtail and some trotters, which are good because you need pig parts that are going to give you a lot of gelatin, and that's going to come from the feet and the shanks and the tails, where there's a lot of collagen in there to create that gelatin. So now what we're doing is we're basically picking off the meat and separating it. I like to leave a little bit of the carrot in there because I want it to be pretty. You can see that's where we added the garlic, we chopped up the tongues, and now that broth that's been cooking down a little bit longer. That broth, by the way, is delicious, and you really need to over salt it. Trust me on this one. When this is served cold, like right now, I tasted this broth and I'm like, oh my God, this is so salty. But when it cooks down and it cools, the saltiness, obviously the sodium is still there, but you don't nearly taste it as much because it's cold. So here you just want to carefully cover all the meat, the vegetables, with the broth. And what I do is now I added the garlic to it, I added the fresh parsley, and I've also added the red pepper flake because it gives it a really nice visual when you cut through this. And now you want to let it cool to room temperature, and then once it's cooled to room temperature, you want to put it in the refrigerator. So here the next morning we came back and we cut into it, and you could see all the meat kind of sinks to the bottom. So the trick here is you want to flip it upside down. You could see the top of that now, once it's been flipped upside down, is really, really beautiful. You could scrape off all that fat, and then ideally the way we serve it is you'll take some crushed fresh pepper and put it on top. I couldn't wait, so I had to taste it the way it is. And man, let me tell you guys something. That little bit of wine, salt, pepper, tons of garlic, just a little bit of zing of the acid from the wine. This stuff was amazing. I couldn't believe it. And I am not a fan of Đeladija, let me tell you. Pig jello is not my thing, but this stuff was fantastic. I will absolutely make it again. I just will not